So, in light of what I was sharing with Lily, I want to hand this passage to y'all with some thoughts. 1 Corinthians chapter 9, starting with verse 19. I'm going to read this to give you some context and start going into verse 10. But there's a passage that this kind of is the meat of the sandwich, and we'll get to that. So reading the whole passage from 9:19 to about 10:4. So, for though I am free from all, I have made myself a servant to all, that I might win more of them. To the Jews I became as a Jew in order to win the Jews. To those that are under the law I became as one under the law, though not being myself under the law, that I might win those under the law. To those outside the law I became as one outside the law, not being outside the law of God, but under the law of Christ, that I might win those outside the law. To the weak I became weak, that I might win the weak. I have become all things to all people, that by all means I might save some. I do it all for the sake of the gospel, that I may share with them in its blessings. Do you not know that in a race all runners run, but only one receives the prize? So run that you may obtain it. Every athlete exercises self-control in all things. They do it to receive a perishable wreath, but we an imperishable. So I do not run aimlessly. I do not box as one beating the air, but I discipline my body and keep it under control, lest after preaching to others I myself should be disqualified. For I do not want you to be unaware, brothers, that our fathers were all under the cloud, and all passed through the sea, and all were baptized into Moses in the cloud and in the sea. And all ate the same spiritual food, and all drank the same spiritual drink. For they drank from the spiritual rock that followed them, and that rock was Christ. Nevertheless, with most of them God was not pleased, for they were overthrown in the wilderness. Psalm 95, 7-11. Today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts. So I swore in my wrath, they will not enter into my rest. The sandwich of this whole passage, and the reason I want y'all to focus and take it in its context: spiritual drink, spiritual food, becoming all things to all people, and running the race. The meat here for our purposes is running the race. This is not a sprint, it is a marathon. When you practice for the Boston Marathon, in order to qualify the Boston Marathon, you have to have previously raced in another marathon. The Boston Marathon is creme de la creme of marathons. In order to run in any other marathon, you have to prepare for the marathon. A 5K, a 10K, a half marathon. A couple of those under your belt before you run an actual marathon. So take a look at the prerequisites for the Boston Marathon. It's not just, oh, I show up on race day, I'm going to run. There's a preparation period. Same with raising a family. There's a preparation period from boy or girl to woman or man to brother or sister, uncle, aunt, and mother, father, depending on where you fall. We have this process that we have to undergo. So long term, if you want to prepare yourself for childbirth, it requires several things that happen over the course of years. It's not just, oh, I wake up, I'm going to have a baby one day. Did you lay the groundwork? This is why I hammer some of these things over the course of a process, and it ticks you off. It's because we're laying groundwork. It's because these principles are long term. They're not, I'm just going to wake up, oh, I'm going to go walk into a hospital room and heal somebody with cancer. No. Call anacondia. 23 hospital rooms. Something like that. on the 24th or the 30th or whatever the case, or the 100th, somebody finally healed. So he went back to the first room and applied what he learned in that last room and started the process again. That's how he got where he is in ministry. He was part of the Argentine revival. But here's the thing. If we don't lay the groundwork now, we can't have the reward that we want now, because Jesus will not wave a magic wand and give us what we want. We build the capacity to store. We prepare for it. We don't just go in and give birth. It takes 40 weeks to gestate the baby, to work with its spirit, if we're doing that and not, stupid to that or ignorant to that set of principles. If we want to take care of our body so that we don't end up in kidney or liver failure, that happens over the course of years with our fluids and electrolytes and our diet and everything else. It's a process. If we want to build into a family, it's a process of first becoming a daughter and learning the dynamics of family and keeping a house, or son in your case, so that we can grow into fatherhood. You don't just magically do it, because if you get thrown into something, then you start retaliating and saying, I don't like this, I don't like that, give me, I want. And we don't have any maturity because we haven't cultivated the fruit of the Spirit of self-control, or kindness, or gentleness, or love. The only reason I'm successful as a parent and as a father comes because I endured a process of being prepared as a son and a brother and a friend. Because my job as a father is to take everything I've gained up to this point and eventually, ultimately, season by season, to pour it into y'all. To help guide you in the areas of son, brother, uncle, aunt, friend, consultant, father, mother. Because at some point in each of your lives, I'm going to function as those various offices. And you're going to have your own wisdom, your own area of expertise. I'm going to seek you out, likely. There is a process of running, though. What you do now will impact you 5 years from now. What you drink and how you keep your fluids will impact what happens in the hospital 5 years from now. Do you wonder why I kick your butts on a regular basis with hikes and other things that you absolutely hate?
I don't hate those.
Do you know why?
Because he wants us to be healthy.
That's why. If you want to have the beauty and the glory of going hiking in Hawaii and Kauai, you've got to put up with all the grubby, nasty stuff that you don't like. Because that place doesn't have a main road that you can just drive up to and enjoy. You hike in primitively with all of the stuff that you need on your back. You don't carry coolers and umbrellas and all this other stuff. You get your sunblock on, your bug spray, your sulfur, carry with your backpack with your non-perishable goods, your Cliff Bars and everything else, and you swim and you enjoy and you take in the glory, and you hike up the cliffs and you take in the vistas. And that comes because I took you to Pinnacle and to Crowder's and to Mount Tom and everything in between. And we were able to enjoy something that's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that very few people get. We get to bless the land. Oh, we only want to visit the areas that have the flat roads. Oh, yeah. But then you only get the flat vista. And you get a bunch of roads in your view. But when you prepare for the greatness And you take the heavy-handed metaphor. When you prepare for the greatness, you have the greatness so that you can receive the fullness of what he wants to pour out when it comes time for him to pour out. Building blocks, Legos, connects, erector sets. It's all the same concept. Tenderness and affection. Taking out the trash. Not griping at one another. Stepping up to the plate immediately and taking the initiative to take care of your brother and sister.
Or everyone working together for a common end, like, you know, we need to get out of the house, or we need to get to a location, or, you know, whatever. Somebody's hurt, we, you know, step up and fill that gap.
Yeah.
Can
Being forthright and not throwing other brothers and sisters under the bus in order to distract your parents. Go ahead, hon.
From a slightly different perspective, just because I'm in a different place than you are, and I would also add, in that preparation process, when you're going through, because there are things we go through, and it trying to go through them with as little pain, or let's find ways to numb the pain, or let's find ways to avoid the path and not go through, is not necessarily the best choice. There are times when we need to go through something, experience the pain, go through the hardship, because that's what builds the muscle. So in the hiking thing, for us to say, hey, we've got the chops now to go to Kauai, you make that hike, we have to go through the physical, you know, I can get to the top of this, and I've done the extended this, and, you know, whatever. You rebuild your body up to it, just like the marathon, and everything else. There's a pain process of building a muscle, because you're stretching the muscle. Actually, every time you do an exercise, you're actually breaking your muscle down a little bit so it can rebuild. That's what the muscle process does, and it's a good and healthy, it's a body design, it's what God made. But it doesn't feel fantastic all the time. You get a little sore, you can get a lot sore, but it's worth it. It's that process. Well, it's the same thing when you're headed toward whatever in your life, and you've got a process like losing somebody, or, you know, whatever, death of a dream, death of a relationship, death of a loved one, you know, whatever that process is. There are treasures in the path of pain. You know, I'm not saying we should seek out a path of pain, but when we're in one, we should be seeking the Lord to go, okay, what can I learn from this? What can I get from this? What treasures are going along the way? You know, you may not be able to see that one day God's going to use it for good in some way, but he says he will. He'll work all things together for good for those who love him and are called according to his purpose, Romans 8:28. But there's that, it's that process. Don't be afraid of the process. You know, there are many biblical examples of walking through a painful process and getting earned authority and being able to speak more into somebody's life.
Yep.
And those things of that nature. So it right along with what he's saying is, you know, that process can be uncomfortable, and it's worth it, you know. So seek the Lord and find out where, you know, is this a process that I should be, you know, trying to do something to avoid? Is it a process that I'm supposed to be walking through? And you can ask for the grace to walk through. You can ask for his help and his strength, obviously. But what can I learn? Where are the treasures? How can I make this beneficial? Because if he's trying to teach you something and you do everything you can to avoid the pain, guess what? He's going to put the same test in another package until you get it. Because with God, we don't fail a test and then like go back to first grade. We fail a test and we get the test again in another form, because he's wanting to teach us something. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
You know, when we look at where we are in Matthew, we talk about what defiles a man, what comes out of a man, the 7 things that defile a man that come out from the heart. That's a process. of putting into our heart steadfast love and faithfulness, kindness, gentleness, self-control, love, peace. And what kind of a process did the Lord put the Canaanite woman through? He said, I was only sent to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. But she came and knelt before him, saying, Lord, help me. And he answered, it is not right to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs. He was putting her through some paces.
Get it out of your mouth. Thank you.
Same thing with Peter. Come. O you of little faith, why did you doubt? Command me to walk on water. Process. Sermon on the Mount. Process. Beatitudes. Process. The desires of your heart in dealing with lusting after a woman, committing adultery in your heart. Process. The desires of your heart. It's all process. Matthew, the gospel of desire. Dealing with her desire, which was help me. He put her through some paces, and she responded skillfully. She said, yes, Lord, yet even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table. She was saying, you're my master. She knew how this went. She had been discriminated against by other Jews. There's this other Jew doing the same thing. I'm going to give him some of the wisdom that the Lord put into me and show him the desire of my heart that I have dealt with for years. And I'm going to say, here I am. Then Jesus answered, O woman, great is your faith, and immediately, bam, be it done for you as your desire. And her daughter was healed instantly, euthus, suddenly, in a moment. She pushed through. Mm-hmm. She pushed through the insult of the Lord.
Instead of picking up an offense.
It was a process of him putting it back and saying, this is not my season. She received a miracle from him out of the season where it otherwise would not have happened. Because right at this point was the season for Israel's visitation. Not the Goyim, the Gentiles' visitation. And yet this Gentile woman, this Syrophoenician woman, received. Because she had run the race. And she'd endured the process and was willing to walk in some of that Solomonic Proverbs-based wisdom. I imagine because she was connected, if he came out of Tyre and Sidon, she would have known the story of Solomon and Hiram and the wisdom that flowed between the two of them. And so she would have picked up something of what was dealt with in Proverbs. And so she would have handed the proverb back to the Lord, who knew the cause and effect relationships between human relationships on that second horizontal level. And she would have said, pulled back from her history of her king, his dealing with Solomon, and she would have handed to this exhorter, the Lord Jesus Christ, and said, indeed, and yet this is what happens. And the Lord said, you get the cause and effect relationship. Good on you. Here you go. Miracle manifests. Because she ran the race. Things to ponder. Guys, be blessed, and we love you. And we'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.